Hi, I'm Shannon. My step toward wholeness started actually quite a few years ago when I was working in addictions and mental health as a social worker. And one of the things that I noticed while I was working there was that after a while I started to feel a little decapitated. And what I mean by that is that I didn't feel whole in my life because I felt like my life was very compartmentalized rather than encompassing the whole thing. So at work I was using my head. I was just using a lot of my head, and then I would go home and I would use the rest of my body for variety. I would use my hands to cook, and I would use my body for my yoga practice, or spending time with my family, hugging my children. And so, but my life was very compartmentalized in that way. So, interestingly enough, throughout this process, I was attending yoga classes, and during the process, I decided to go through yoga teacher training and become a yoga teacher. At the time that I was actually going through yoga teacher training, one of the things that I was planning on doing with that was to try to incorporate yoga as therapy. So I wasn't planning on leaving my current job. I was actually planning on trying to find ways to incorporate that. But what I was finding, what I found later, was that that was actually much more complicated. I encountered a lot of resistance in doing that. And actually, 1 week before I was to graduate from yoga teacher training, my boss came in and actually had to let me go because of financial problems with the office. They were just having to cut back, and so I ended up being one of the people that they were cutting back just for financial reasons in the office. And it was interesting because sometimes I think that our step toward wholeness needs almost like a push, and that was really my push. I was sort of dragging my feet going, I don't really want to leave here, even though I feel decapitated, even though I don't feel whole here, even though there's something else that I just feel driven toward and that really makes me feel more whole. I didn't want to leave, and so this was sort of that push to make me take that first step. And so I have nothing but gratitude for that experience, that I ended up having to lose my job in order to feel whole. Through yoga, through my practice, through teaching, through my yoga, through my experiences with yoga, one of the things that I've really discovered is that it is more than just the asana. It's more than the practice, the physical practice, like what we do on our mats, the things that you see in magazines and on television or whatever. Yoga is about so much more than that. Yoga in and of itself literally means unity or wholeness. It is all about unifying the mind, body, and spirit. It's all about wholeness. And so there's this great quote from a yoga instructor named Nancy Gerstein, and she says, your yoga begins when you leave the classroom. It's how you connect to people and how you relate to the world. Your yoga is the giving and receiving. It's the wellness between inner and outer worlds. Your yoga is living the purpose of your life. Your yoga is to spread peace one person at a time. And I just think that that is a beautiful way to express that wholeness. In addition to yoga, one of the ways that I've been stepping toward health and wholeness is in a focus on nutrition. And in 2007, I believe it was, my family actually made a step toward wholeness with ourselves and with all of life, in our decision to adopt a vegan life. And so that was one step that we made toward wholeness in our lives. But more recently, I've come to grips with the fact that I'm a food addict. And I think I've struggled with that for a really long time, but never really put that label on it. But I've really come to grips with that I am an addict and food is my drug. And so that has been something that I've more recently started dealing with. And that's really a struggle because I get really excited about food. my family will try new things with not just with vegan food, but we've tried experimenting with raw food, just in this attempt at being more whole and looking at nutrition more seriously. And so as a food addict, to be in the kitchen all day working on food, it's really challenging. So I'm really working on trying to find a good balance in that. And one way I've begun to address that is through juicing. So just a few months ago, I started juicing, and the purpose of that for me was to try to retrain my brain into, or kind of reboot it, reprogram it to want nutritious foods rather than junk food, because just because you're a vegan doesn't mean that you eat healthy food all the time. To want correct amounts of food, just to really try to deal with this addiction, because food is not an addiction that you can just cut out of your life, obviously. And another way that I've been working toward that is I've started recently on developing sort of a syllabus for myself that I'm going to be following, and this is going to be a lifelong process. So, but right now I'm just kind of writing down the things that I'm going to go through, and then I'm planning on at least starting some of it, even if I'm not done writing the whole syllabus, but I'm starting some of it. Basically going through the 8 limbs of yoga and incorporating that with the 12 steps of recovery, and incorporating different things, like incorporating asana practice, incorporating yoga, incorporating breath work, but also reading through the Yoga Sutras and looking little by little at the yamas, which are the laws of life, the niyamas, which are the rules of living, the asana postures, mixing those in there, looking at pranayama, which is breathing practice, looking at pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses, dharana, which is concentration, looking at dhyana, which is meditation, and looking at samadhi, really working on settling the mind and becoming closer with the divine. So those are some things that I'm doing to try to take steps toward wholeness in my life.